guess he is in the country. I just talked to him. He's a little shit.
We have
No, I have to. No, I have to.
Bahrain, Morocco, and
He should come. I talked to him yesterday. He told me he was coming.
really? He told us today he wasn't. Ladies and gentlemen, if we could start up again, it is my Okay. It is my distinct honor to introduce Ambassador Tom Nides. The ambassador is a man who needs no introduction, so I will not give one, a long one. Tom Nides has been a good friend of the Conference of Presidents, literally for decades. Someone whom Malcolm and I have known for quite a long time and have been engaged with in discussions over many years. We're going to have a little bit of a discussion and ask some questions. Then we'll have time for a few questions from the audience. So, Ambassador, thank you for being here.
Well, let me just tell you, thank you. Just to be clear, I could never say no. First of all, I've known the guy on my left for 30 years. Malcolm has been a stalwart supporter of mine as a friend, as a mentor. He has been and continues to be a symbol for both Democrats and Republicans as someone who not only cares about Israel, but cares about the Jewish cause. And having worked both on Wall Street and in government in many different positions all over the government, I've looked to him for advice and counsel. And I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed over the last 2 years spending time with William as I went through my confirmation once they decided to select me, the process of it, and educating me about what it means to represent a very large, diverse organization, which has given me some ideas what I'm up to about being the ambassador to Israel, because I just want to be like this organization, representing a lot of diverse views and not making everyone upset at me. And so I haven't accomplished that yet, but I'm learning from these two about how to take all of everyone's opinions and listening to them without getting thrown out of the country. So I'm honored to be here, and I look forward to honoring all the questions. And Diane, you and I have spent a little time together on Zoom, and I'm honored that I could be here with you. And I hope that I'll have an opportunity to spend more time with you now in person now that Zoom is over. But thank you for your leadership, which, by the way, you having to lead all this is complicated in itself. So I don't know how you do it, but congratulations. So thank you for your leadership.
Thank you. So the first question we have is, every American administration has had a different approach to Israel and Israel's government. Some have built strong ties and friendships between leaders, like President Clinton and Prime Minister Rabin, or President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Others have had a more chilly relationship. Looking to the future, how do you hope the Biden administration's relationship, accomplishments, and legacy regarding Israel will be viewed?
When I took this job, or when someone asked me if I should take this job, or then I got nominated for the job, someone asked me, why'd you want to do it? And I said, I have this idea that there's like a North Star, not that's because I'm from Minnesota, but kind of this North Star about supporting a democratic Jewish state. And I replied, it's very similar to what Joe Biden has been saying. Joe Biden, listen, he's been around for a long time, as we all know, okay? It's shock to everyone. This guy has been involved in every foreign policy debate as it relates to Israel, every foreign assistance debate, every major issue over the last 50 years, Joe Biden has been at the forefront of it. He will call himself a Zionist, which he does constantly. I am telling you, I think and I believe there's going to be no better friend, and has been no better friend of Israel than Joe Biden. And again, it's not partisan. It's not like just because I'm a Democrat or I'm just telling you, I see it. And the reason I believe that is to have a relationship with the Jewish community is to support them and to argue with them and to love them and to push back on them. Joe Biden has had that his whole career. It's interesting, when I've talked to him about Israel and the importance of, he talks about this unbreakable bond. I think he really means it is an unbreakable bond. And so listen, if it's the Iron Dome, if it's a continuation with the MOU, is it supporting Israel during the Gaza war, or whatever we refer to it, as its support for this country and the people, as the Prime Minister has said, he's got a really, really beautiful relationship with Joe Biden. They're not going to agree on everything, and I'm sure we can talk about Iran in a second and different issues around that. But as a relationship, as a personal relationship between the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister and this government with the leadership of our country, I hope it continues because I'm here, and if I have anything to say about it, I will make sure it happens because, in my view, that's what this relationship is all about. So I think it is. Listen, I didn't hear of all Prime Minister Bennett's comments, but I'm telling you something. This coalition is a beautiful thing. Okay, we don't agree with everything, and they don't agree with everything among themselves. But I'm telling you, this is what Israel is about. The idea that this guy pulled this together with the Foreign Minister Lapid and guys like Gantz and Minister Shakat and Gideon Saar. I could go through everyone. I have met every one of the ministers in this country, and it is a really unbelievable mosaic. We should be proud as Jews to see this going on. I went on Friday night to Mansour Abbas's home in the Galilee to have dinner with he and his family, his daughter, his son, and their new 1.5-year-old and his wife. And I'm telling you, again, I don't want to get nutty here, but it was unbelievable. Here's a guy who joined this coalition as an Arab, has stood up for Israel, has stood up for the idea of this country and denounced, by the way, the issues around the amnesty report about the use of apartheid, as I did, as the State Department did, but sitting at the home of this guy who has kept this coalition together as an Arab and listening to talk about just doing the right thing for the people of this country, it was amazing, and I give the Prime Minister credit as the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister credit of bringing this coalition together. So I am a enormous fan of this government, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of times we'll go back and forth. And they probably won't like everything I say, but inherently, this government is what makes Israel what it is, and we all should be proud of this Prime Minister and this leadership and this government, and we should hope to keep this for a very long time, because I'm telling you, it's good for the Jews, it's good for America's relationship with Israel, and I am an enormous supporter, and not only do I speak for me as the ambassador, but I speak for the United States of America and this government. So he's the real deal.
Thank you. For those of us who follow you on social media, we see you meeting with every minister, as you said, every member of Knesset, it seems like, civil society leader, and thinkers in this country. I've seen you with Haredi rabbis and with Reform rabbis and everything in between. As someone who's been to Israel for dozens of times before you were ambassador, has there been anything that's changed in your perspective about this country, what you thought you'd be seeing based on what you're seeing now, and how you've experienced Israel firsthand as ambassador?
It's funny. I know this is going to sound corny. I really don't have an ideology. Yeah, I'm a liberal guy. I'm a liberal Democrat from Minnesota. I was a Reformed Jew. I was a Jew who went to temple a few times a year. But I came here as a cultural Jew. It's in my soul. It's in my heart. It's the idea. There's people who represent organizations around that. My father was a president of our synagogue. He was the head of the UJA. My mother was the head of Hadassah. I grew up.
Hadassah's in the room. I
grew up. I went. My first trip to Israel when I was 14 years old. I worked on the kibbutz. I wasn't religious. I was not wearing a kippah. But I cared deeply about it. And when I got here, I made the decision that I'm going to be everywhere. I'm not going to, and again, I'm not being dismissive of stuff, but I was going to try to go from Bnei Brak to Nazareth, okay? I was going to go to the wall and spend time with. I've been to the wall so many times; they're now getting sick of me. Okay, the rabbi of the wall, and I've been to the hotel. I was there this morning again, because I care deeply about representing all of Israel. Again, I go up to Mansour Abbas, not because I like Mansour Abbas. I want to show to everyone, all I care about is a strong, democratic Jewish state. And whatever I do is within that realm of a democratic Jewish state, and that's what I'm trying to do. So my hope is that I will continue to express that and have no, and I'm sure I'll make people mad. I'll do things that people are like, why'd you do this? And every time I open my mouth, I make someone mad. But I go from the left to the right. I'll meet with anyone. I'll talk to anyone if I believe it helps Israel continue to be a strong, democratic Jewish state. So that's what I do.
So the Abraham Accords, which you'll be celebrating with us tonight, and thank you so much for tomorrow night and tonight, but which you'll be celebrating with us tomorrow night, and thank you so much.
You guys are the only group I'd come twice to in it's 14 hours. By the way, I tried to say no. I want to be clear to you guys. I wanted to say no, and I did say no, and I'm coming because I can't tell these guys no, and they won't let me say no, so I am coming. So
the ambassador told us he would do anything we want, and so
true.
Thank you so much. So we're celebrating the Abraham Accords tomorrow night. It has clearly been a game changer for Israel's relationship with Arab and Muslim nations. What role do you have to foster those relationships and to help create new ones?
Listen. As you know, I'm in this job. I'm not supposed to be partisan, so I'm not being partisan. But there was always this idea: was the Biden administration going to support the Abraham Accords because it was a Trump thing? I don't care. And by the way, Biden doesn't care. What he cares about is supporting this country. And the Abraham Accords, they did a phenomenal job of creating the Abraham Accords. No question about it. And my job as the American ambassador is to go deeper with the countries that are in the Abraham Accords. So I spend multiple times a week dealing with my friends in the Emiratis, the Moroccans, the Bahrainians. We are about ready to launch a whole bunch of cultural events vis-a-vis bringing the groups together. I had a working groups with each one of the ambassadors. I literally spent this morning talking to the Moroccans about doing a big cultural event in the Emirates. I think that this has created an opportunity, an opening that helps the security of the state of Israel. And again, if I go back to what I believe is important about Israel and the importance of it's continue to be a strong democratic Jewish state, the Abraham Accords is a phenomenal thing to support. So again, I want to do what I can do as much as I can do to make them tangible and real. And it's not just the business deals. The business deals are great, and that will happen by nature. And I spent half my career on Wall Street. I know how to do deals. It's the people-to-people stuff. I'm telling you, it's very hard to fight with people when you get to know them. Okay, and the idea that having Moroccans here and having Israelis flocking to Dubai, and they'll have the Bahrainians coming here and walking around, seeing the Prime Minister in Bahrain. I'm telling you, this is what we are all about, and that's why I'm fully in support. And I'm driving my staff crazy because I want to have results as it relates to the Accords. And Mohammed, who's the Emiratis, I talk to him more than I talk to my wife. So I think it is I think it's great. I think it's helpful. Obviously, we'd like to widen them over time. There's other countries we'd like to have be part of this. We'll work with them. We'll try to get the broader because, again, I think it helps the national security of the state of Israel.
So now we're going to move into what maybe a carnivore would call red meat, but as a vegan, I'll say firm tofu questions. So Mahmoud Abbas is currently 86 and in the 16th year of his 4-year term. He suffers from numerous health ailments and has done very little to prepare for a stable transition. How do you think the political situation in Ramallah impacts the advancement of final status agreement? Where do you see the relations between Israel and the PA moving? And what role do you have as ambassador, and does the United States have to move this agenda item forward?
Wow, okay. Let me just say the following. I deeply care about the vision of a two-state solution. I believe it's in Israel's best interest for that vision not to be distinguished. So my sense is I care deeply about making sure that people believe and are firmly committed to the vision of a two-state solution. I am under no illusions here that I'll be signing in the next 6 weeks, a peace agreement between Israel and the PA. But that's not what this is about. It's keeping the vision alive, because if that vision is in any way extinguished, that is not good for Israel, and it's certainly not good for the Palestinian people. Number two, I'm fixated on doing things for the Palestinian people. We'll put the PA to the side for 1 second. The Biden administration has and will continue to support the Palestinian people. We are now giving up to $500 million to the Palestinian people through organizations that are not perfect. UNRWA is not perfect. You know, some of these organizations are not perfect, but the average Palestinian needs to be able to have freedom, security for education, opportunities, because I'm telling you, if they don't, the options are not great. And my humble view of this is, we can argue about the, listen, I am totally opposed, obviously, as the administration is on, pay for slay and what they've done on that and the tailored force. I'm totally supportive of. But that does not mean that this administration and the Israelis, and by the way, the Israelis agree on this. They're trying to help the Palestinian people. I spent an enormous amount of time with Defense Minister Gantz. He is a unbelievable leader, and as you know, the defense minister has say over the West Bank. I am working with them every day. As by the way, the Prime Minister would say that. We were with Speaker Pelosi 3 days ago, and he said exactly what I've said, which is to help the Palestinian people, look for opportunities to help the Palestinian people. That's what Jews do. We don't need to agree with everything that goes on, but what we are responsible to do is to help Palestinian people, because, to answer your question, if tomorrow President Abbas was no longer the president, obviously there's going to be some succession. But more importantly, we might want to make sure that the Palestinian people care about what that succession is, because we have a thing called Hamas who's waiting in the wings. And we have to be smart about this. And I say we, I mean the United States and Israel needs to be smart about it. And I give the Prime Minister credit and the Foreign Minister credit to be focused on this issue, because they understand the alternative is not great. And so again, I spent a lot of time. My first serious meeting was with Arab business leaders. And some said, why are you doing that? Because I want to send a message that this is important. They need the opportunities and the ability to do things to the Arab community for them to feel part of this society. So again, I think it is again, if I go back to my North Star, do I believe it's good to keep this a democratic Jewish state? My answer is keeping things calm in the West Bank is in the best interest of Israel. It's the best interest of the Palestinian people, and I will do whatever I can, me and the United States, to continue pushing that forward. So I'm honored to spend time on it, and I'll spend as much time as possible to do it.
2 more questions, and then we'll open it up for the audience. And so whoever has the microphone should stand by on that. You heard part of the Prime Minister's remarks on Iran, and I'm sure it comes as no surprise that there is great consternation within the government and certainly in this room about what appears to be an agreement that's flowing from Vienna. One which will give reportedly billions of dollars to the Iranians for promises that are solely focused on the nuclear files that relate to enrichment, that don't talk about ballistic missiles, that don't talk about malevolent activities across the region and the world. How do you see that playing out, and what would be your guidance for the American Jewish community and for the government of Israel?
Well, first of all, I can't get into the details of the negotiations going on in Vienna. I'm not in the room, obviously. I've spent a lot of time on this topic. First and foremost, this president has been very clear. We will not stand by to let the Iranians obtain a nuclear weapon. Okay? The president's been very, very clear about this. Number two, I don't think it's lost on anyone that the Iranians are very close of obtaining a nuclear weapon. Some would say weeks, days. The ability of getting into discussion, I'm not a nuclear scientist, but I think we all understand that 90% enrichment is a bad thing. A bad thing. And I don't want to do a lot of revisionist history around this room, because a lot of you have been involved in this debate for a long time. We are here in this position for a lot of decisions that were made. It's not a partisan debate, it's a reality, okay? It's a reality. So the president is committed to make sure the Iranians do not get a nuclear weapon. How we work that out and how we focus on pushing the decision of the 90% enrichment away, if it's, to 2030, if it's a date later, is this a beginning of a longer conversation? Details will come if we get to that stage. We are not at that stage. And I also make it very clear, the Israelis have the right to do what they need to do to defend their country. So no one is tying the hands of the Israelis. And three, it's very important to understand, we are lockstep with the Israelis. There's nothing we are doing here that they are not aware of. I'm not suggesting they're supportive of what we are doing or not doing, but there's no games here. There was, I think in the last Democratic administration that I was a part of, there was some sense that we weren't communicating with them and they were surprised. I'm telling you, I spend daily in conversations with their national security advisor. Tony Blinken is on the phone with the foreign minister once a week. The prime minister was on the phone with the president 5 days ago. Again, we care deeply about the security of this country, deeply care about the security of this country, and we'll work hand in hand with the Israelis. And there is no deal at this point. Could there be a deal? Sure. I do agree with the prime minister. One of the biggest threats to the state of Israel is not necessarily Iran, but it's the proxies, without question. And we will work hand in hand, as we are working with them, to eliminate that threat. So I should tell you, one of the things, you asked me what I was surprised at when I got here, is how coordinated the IDF is with our Defense Department. How coordinated the intelligence operation of this country is coordinated with our intelligence. It is lockstep. It is seamless. Again, I'm not saying there's disagreements, and I'm not saying there won't be disagreements on if we get to an Iran deal. Okay, I would be the last person to overstate that. But I just want to be clear. We are as focused as Israelis are to make sure Iran does not possess a nuclear weapon.
Thank you. Last question from me. You were recently quoted in several Israeli media outlets as stating that you would not visit any Israeli communities located across the Green Line. What led you to such a Sherman-esque blanket statement? And are you concerned that it might have adverse effects on your ability to have dialogue with the hundreds of thousands of Israelis who live in those areas, including numerous members of the Knesset and the government?
Yeah, well, it probably wasn't, I could have probably said it a little nicer than I said in that story. I could have been a little more artful. Here's the deal. I'm trying not to do things that aggravate people, okay? I will meet with anyone who wants to meet with me. Any settler who lives in a settlement and wants to meet with me, come meet with me, okay? I thought it was not right today for me to go in my motorcade and go hang out in a settlement, because I didn't want people to say, oh, that's great. What is he talking about the settlements? Just by way, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I'll meet with anyone who has a view about settlements. I'll meet with anyone who is right, left, medium. I don't care. But I try not to do symbolic things that just make things worse. Again, and people will say, well, you just made it worse by saying you weren't going to go to a settlement. Okay, if I'm guilty of that, I'm guilty of that. But if someone, and there was a rabbi who I will not name, who had written a nice thing about me, and then I made that comment in one of my interviews, and in the paper I said where I lived, which was, my security guys didn't think that was great. But anyways, and the next morning a letter was delivered to my house, to my apartment, from this rabbi. He says, I'm really disappointed. I really liked you, and I thought you were, I thought that those comments were, he didn't say inappropriate, he was nice about it, but he was mad. And so I called my staff, I go, just ignore it. No, I picked up the phone and called him. I said, you know what? I could have been a little more artful. I'm sorry. Why don't you and I go have a drink? We had a drink at the Waldorf 2 weeks ago, and now he wants to have cigars next week. Anyway, my only point is, I'm trying not to do things that intentionally aggravate people. I've gone to the wall at the Kotel 4 dozen times. Okay, I have a friend of mine who's very sick with cancer. I go every day. I pray at the wall. I don't make a big fuss of it. I put a note in and I leave. The rabbi from the wall was gracious enough to host me at the wall last week. And I did a bunch of videos with him, and then went to the yeshiva, and he said, hey, come on down to the tunnels. I said, you know what? I've been down the tunnels when I wasn't the ambassador. I don't want to go. I don't need to go down the tunnels. First of all, I get claustrophobic down there. Anyways, and he said, well, the former ambassador went down the tunnels. I said, I know. And that's fine. That's great. But why do I need to do that? I love this place. Why do I need to go do something that's just going to aggravate a bunch of people? I'm fine. I'm not being disrespectful. I'm with you. You're the man. We're at the hotel, and I'm here with you, and I'll come anytime you want me to come. So I could have been marginally more artful. I'm trying to do the best I can do. This is a very complicated place to manage, but I'm trying to have a North Star, and if I can keep that North Star, people will say, he wasn't a jerk. He's trying to do the best he can do, and that's what I want to do.
I love the Kotel too, and the Old City is probably my favorite place in the world, so glad we have that in common. We are ready for some questions. If we'll start right over here.
Funny, not to digress though. I just did when I was coming in. I was texting back and forth with David Friedman, and I was texting with him, and I said, "How's your book tour going?" And he said, "Well, it's going pretty well." I was okay, and he sends me an article, and I look at it. It's from Breitbart. And I'm like, and I said, Jesus, I missed my Breitbart this week. He goes, by the way, it's a daily, not a weekly. So anyways, I didn't know. I thought it was a weekly. This is so much. But anyway, my point is, I have enormous respect for him. We don't agree on some stuff, but as a patriot, as someone who cares about Israel and cares about America, no one should question that. Yes, sir.
Just introduce yourself, please.
David Schimmel, friend of the conference. Mr. Ambassador, there's an area that I'm confused about in American policy. Hasn't been a big subject of conversation here, but one of the most major transformations strategically for Israel has been its gas finds. Mm-hmm. And one of the correlated strategic alliance that was developed with Cyprus and Greece for a pipeline that would not only transform Israel's relationship with at least southern Europe, but would relieve some of the pressure that the Russians might be able to use through the Nord Stream pipeline. Why would the United States reverse their policy of supporting this project, which apparently involves a great deal of investment from the United States as well that is being withdrawn? Why was that done?
It's a great question.
And we'll go to Harriet next, but go ahead, Ambassador.
It's a great question. I got here about 3 months ago. The way I was, basically the pipeline wasn't economical. It was never going to be built. I mean, that's what I was told. The cost of building the pipeline was enormous. And obviously, I agree with you all, the symbolism and the importance of it. It was never going to be built, at least as what I've been told, vis-a-vis the cost of this pipeline. But that said, we are obviously working very close. Listen, Malcolm has been educating me on the importance of this relationship between Cyprus and Greece. This is not, by the way, just a way to block out Turkey, because as you know, Israel is beginning to thaw that relationship with Turkey as well. But this was, I think, basically an economic issue that this was not going to ever get built for the cost it needed to be built by. And there was other ways of bringing more clean energy to the region. But again, this kind of caught me a little bit by surprise. Maybe it could have been done a little more artfully than it was done. But really, at the end of the day, I think it was really an economic issue more than anything else.
Our final question, Harriet, if you could just introduce yourself and your organization.
If I could get this. I'm Harriet Schleifer. Thank you, Ambassador from American Jewish Committee. We used to say that the peace process had to go through Ramallah. And then with the Abraham Accords, we realized that maybe it doesn't have to go through Ramallah. Yet, I understand that the Saudi government is still focusing on Ramallah and peace with Palestinians in order to bring more countries into the Abraham Accords. My question is, who does Israel sit down with at the table? If Israel sits with the PA, does the PA have any voice and authority over Palestinians in Gaza? So who gets to say who makes peace with Israel?
That's a really, really interesting question. And I guess the way I'm going to answer this question is that's why we're focused on the Palestinian people. We're focused on the vision of peace. So I am under no illusions here, right? We cannot want peace more than the parties want peace, right? We can't want peace more than the Palestinians' leadership or even the Palestinian people. And we certainly can't want peace more than the Israelis' public does, right? So the United States' role in this is to make sure people don't do stupid things that make peace unable to ever get accomplished. You know, people have to have a vision of something, because in my humble view, and some people in this room may disagree, a one-state solution is not a solution, okay? It's not good for Israel, it's not good for the Jews, it's not good for anyone. There'll be some that may disagree, and by the way, there are people in the PA that are saying, why not? We can have a one-state solution. We're growing like this. Israeli births are going like this, beyond the Hardim, you know, but, you know, right? So, well, maybe that's not a bad idea. That I disagree with. Again, going back to my vision of what's important in a strong democratic Jewish state. So I think so we are focused every day on trying to make life easier for the Palestinian people without compromising the security of the state of Israel. If anyone walks into my office, I have an idea, which is every day, and I say if there's anything that would suggest one iota of creating a security problem for Israel, the idea doesn't exist. But the things we are trying to do for the Palestinian people does not compromise the security of the state of Israel at all. And the guy who believes that is Bennett and Gantz and Lapid. And these are strong leaders who understand the importance of this. So it's a great, great question. And I think ultimately what I would love to have happen and hope there's still opportunities, is the Palestinians benefit from the Abraham Accords. Okay? Now, it's some of their responsibility to accept it, but also they look around and what benefits do they get from it. So there is it's like this loop that you all have been involved in for years. I'm just trying to keep things calm. As I think the Prime Minister would say, try to keep things calm, try to keep the parties moving forward incremental by incremental. He was said this thing a couple days ago about how you move the dial a little bit. That's fine. Because again, I think it's important for us to keep our eye on the prize, which is a strong democratic Jewish state. Thank you very much.
Mr. Ambassador, Malcolm has a presentation on behalf of the conference.
Oh, great.
It's ticking.
By the way, it better be as nice as you gave the PM, or I'm going to be upset.
It's a miniature version of what we gave the Prime Minister, because we didn't want you to get in trouble at home for accepting such a big gift.
Oh, I agree. Thank you. I appreciate that, Malcolm. Thank you.
But big things come in little packages, and it is by the same artist, and we hope we'll see it in your office, like he's hanging in his office. Yeah. So we're really pleased to have a representative of Duluth here. We actually have another Minnesotan, right, that identified himself, Robert Aronson. So that makes two. Yippee. And we're going to, I want the people to understand, I have known him for more than 30 years. And we fought a lot in those 30 years. I would say pretty regularly. But there's nobody I respect more, and I think who has more integrity, and who I'd want to see standing up in Washington to make the case and explain Israel's complexities than the ambassador. I have seen, and I've heard in Washington just in the last weeks, that he is not just a representative, he is an advocate, and he made the case for Israel on some very sensitive issues. And I can tell you, during the years of the Obama administration, when certain people were not really open to us, he was. And he took at the State Department, he was the Undersecretary. I can tell you, I spoke to him as frequently as could be imagined, and he took on every issue for us, including one very sensitive issue where he walked into the room and said, this is the way it's going to come out, guys, and turned the whole thing around on a matter of great importance to Israel, Jordan, and others. So we're not going to agree on everything with him. We may disagree on a lot of things with him. But nobody can challenge what he believes. When he went to light the menorah, it's not something he had to do. It was a demonstrative act, a commitment. His visits to everything from Rabbi Kanievsky and going to Bnei Brak, it's a real challenge, and I'm glad you took it. And visiting with people locally. I think he will build bridges between Israel and the United States. I think it will strengthen the ties. I'm sure we're going to continue to disagree on a lot of things. By the way, the birth rate in Israel is going up, and it is surpassing the Arab birth rate, so that's the good news for us for the future. But the demographic challenge remains, and having somebody there that will be able to interpret to Washington, because I know how much they respect your voice. It's not just somebody that was assigned a diplomatic post. You have very close ties into the White House and the State Department. I heard it from them many times. They said, "Did you ask Tom?" And I did, and I hope that all of you appreciate that the United States has such a capable representative here, even when we disagree with him. And we have for you this little plaque, this gift by the same artist, Sharon Binder, that says, "All of Israel are responsible for one another." And we hope that it will be a reminder of the friends that are here and the many more friends that you will make.
Let's do a quick photo.
Thanks, buddy. Thank
We'll do a quick photo for over here. Photo with the presentation, and then.
See you guys.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now about to have the festive meal, unless you guys want some more talking. At 8:30, Magen David Adom will start the testing for tomorrow. We're all doing instant testing if you're going to be with us tomorrow. It'll be in the Arbel Hall, which is just around the corner. Any other announcements, Carolyn? Carolyn has one more announcement, and then we will have the festive meal.
Just to emphasize William's point about the testing.
Right, and dinner should be served while we're doing this, folks.
The Arbel room is out this door to my right. Again, we're testing every evening, so we get the results overnight. I want to reiterate that everyone has to have a negative test in order to participate in the sessions tomorrow. So it'll be the same drill as you had today. Take the test tonight. You'll get the results overnight. Before you enter the session tomorrow morning, go to the hospitality desk, get a different color bracelet, and enjoy the day with us.
I will not lose my bracelet.